Wario is quite the interesting character, being featured in many games and spin-offs, overshadowing even the Plum's little brother when comparing main character appearances. He was first introduced to the world through the exclusively handheld Warioland 2, where he played an antagonistic role. He made such an impact that not only did they bring him back for the next Warioland game, he headlined it. For the third entrance in the Warioland series, they decided to center around the old villain. This then developed into his own Warioland series, and eventually he was given his beloved WarioWare series. Popular and beloved as he is, many are unaware of the fact that not only is he more impressive than he seems, but he may in fact be the strongest being in the Mario universe. Originally, Wario's main motivation was intense jealousy towards Mario, which caused him to take over Mario's land, but from then onwards it was established that the only force that drove him was his insatiable greed. This led him to plunder the Brown Sugar Pirates, trading the funds he gained via Genie Wish for his very own castle, which, depending on the amount of coins collected in the game, could range from a bando to a literal planet. And gotta hand it to Wario though, he doesn't blow the money, rather he invested in his own gaming company. Truthfully though, it would be kinda funny seeing him do that in 2023 and somehow find a way to shoehorn a battle pass into a minigame collection. Wario's most iconic and basic move is his dash attack from the Warioland games, in which he charges forward in a shoulder barge, dealing damage to enemies and breaking blocks. He also has an upgraded version called the Super Dash attack, in which his head is used rather than a shoulder and he plows through anything in his path. Also, similarly to Mario, he has a ground power known as the Smash attack, the only difference being that this can stun enemies. There's also an upgraded version, the Super Smash attack, that is more powerful and will plow through anything other than the ground. Also in the Mario World game, the only 3D entry in his line of platformers, he has the Hyper Suction ability, which allows him to suck up items into his mouth, along with the other basics including the Mega Toss, Power Driver and Wild Swing Ding. In the DS game Wario Master of Disguises, Wario enters his TV in order to pursue his goal of becoming a Master Thief. Along this quest he gains 8 transformations. The initial was his thief form known as the Silent but Deadly Purple Wind. In this form, on top of having his standard shoulder barges, he can jump much higher than without it. The second form found in this game is the Cosmic Wario, in which he wears a Lunar Gym style astronaut suit and carries a laser blaster. Third is RT Wario, which allows him to manipulate matter and conjure up objects in thin air, avoiding the simple practice of equivalent exchange. To be honest, I wanted to say he can draw things and they'll appear in the most dramatic way possible. This form is the first example of him showing his true power though. He even has the ability to draw hearts and regen health, giving him healing abilities that overpower even the most powerful fictional healers. The Genius Wario form gives him sight far beyond that of a regular being, allowing him to see things that would normally be naked to the human eye. Sparky Wario gives him electrokinetic prowess, allowing him to create light and shoot out electricity. The Captain Wario form gives him the ability to swim, the only ability listed so far that I personally lack, and it also allows him to fire out torpedoes at will. Dragon Wario turns him into Scaly, who can breathe fire and has immunity to lava, and finally Wicked Wario turns him into an imp with the ability of flight, displaying his ability to change species at will. The first time I ever saw Wario was as a 6-year-old playing through Subspace Emissary in the best Super Smash Bros. Game, and damn did he leave quite the impression. Charles Miss was absolutely terrified watching this manlet storming through, turning all of these beloved Nintendo properties into some ceramic statues ready to be stuffed, and Wario had been present in every Smash game since Brawl, and both his movesets have been kept identical, apart from slight changes to the animations. Most of his moves in these games are physical attacks that are either too basic to be notable or have been mentioned earlier, such as the dash. However, there are 3 of note, the first being the Wario bike attack, where he pulls out a motorcycle from thin air and drives it across the stage. From this I can only infer that Wario has access to a pocket dimension of some sort where he stores such a large item, similarly to Jack Horner's nanny bag in Puss in Boots 2. By the way, that movie is incredible. Genuinely, it has absolutely no right being that funny, that heartfelt, and having animation anywhere near that good. I watched it with my friends and we all loved it, except for one, but he's dead inside so he doesn't really count. Peak fiction aside, another one of Wario's moves is the Wario Waft, in which he displays his affinity for airbending. He is also shown through his jump ability to have a jaw so strong that he's not only just able to damage armored foes with his bite, he's also able to bite through items and objects. In the Warioland games, he has power-ups which uniquely are the result of interactions with specific objects or enemies within the game. When Wario touches a bubble underwater, he will turn into a bubble that is able to counterflow against water currents and flow to the top of water. Pistons can squash him into flat Wario, which is thin enough to fit on the tight spaces and gives him a large enough surface area that he falls at much slower speed. This displays how malleable and durable his body just is. When he makes contact with a speed stinger, he exhibits an allergic reaction that causes him to puff up into a human balloon that will float. He clearly is still pervious to internal attacks since his nervous system is being affected. However, this isn't even close to being enough to end his life. When he touches Miniculas, these bat enemies, he is transformed into one, once again showing his ability to change his own species and clearly mimic that of others. Similarly, he can turn into a vampire when touched by a Kabato. He is also shown to be able to survive being set on fire, being electrocuted and being frozen. Speaking of which, he is able to transform himself into a snowman when covered in snow. When being bitten by an undead creature or being vomited on by a skeleton bird, he will turn into a zombie until being exposed to light or touched by water, where he will return to his, I guess you could say, human form. When Wario eats cakes, donuts or apples, he'll gain a lot of weight rapidly, becoming Fat Wario. This state makes him impervious to enemy attacks and making it that anyone who even touches him dies from intense fat phobia. When he's hit by a manhammer or Hammerbutt's hammer, he is crushed into a spring, giving him the ability to bounce once again, showing just how malleable he is. Also, beer-throwing penguins can cause Wario to become drunk, or ball-throwing penguins if you aren't Japanese, in the state known as Crazy Wario. He can also turn into a red ball for some reason when jumped on by a shoot or dunk, and can do the same thing to them. There may be nothing more terrifying than the idea of Wario turning into a sentient ball. In a similar vein, when he touches a Silky, he'll be turned into a literal ball of string. Also, when he's cursed, he turns into a smaller version of himself. The ball/garlic pots turn him into a ball Wario, giving him additional strength, the ability to stick to ceilings for some reason, and the ability to create shockwaves when hitting the ground. The dragon part turns him into a dragon Wario that allows him to breathe fire so hot that it can burn underwater, and the jet part gives him the ability to glide, and finally he also has the ability to become invincible. He can just do anything really. Okay, a lot of abilities have been explored and a lot of them have been incredibly impressive, but to be honest, I wouldn't blame you for not being convinced of the claim that the title was making just yet. Well, that's because there's a very important bit of information that I haven't actually mentioned yet. The manual that accompanies Wario Land 2 explains many things about the game, such as how to start, save, and how to play the minigames. One of the sections of the manual was titled Wario's Conditions and contains some of the transformations that I mentioned before. However, I never mentioned how the section actually starts. It starts with Wario monologuing, "No matter how much damage I take, I am immortal. Ha, ha." Not only does Wario have all of these abilities at his fingertips, according to his words, he is immortal. There is no game over. The inhabitants of the Mario universe should count themselves lucky that he's only interested in money, because if he wanted something else, something more sinister maybe, who would stop him?